Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Swiss MLB Tuesday, which means we got 15 games. Tuesday is always a great baseball night. As far as Monday night, so the bets I placed went 1 and 2, but the one win was the over in the Yankees Rays. And what I did was when I posted the ticket, I put it down as a lean, so I can't even count that as a win. And then the two bets on the live show that I said I was adding: White Sox Rangers first 5 under 4.5. Oakland team total over 3.5. Those are the two bets on the live show I said I was adding. Forgot to bet them, forgot to post them. So would have been 3 and 2, but unfortunately, I have to take an 0 and 2 night on the website because I'm an asshole. Frustrating. But let's put it in the past. Move on to Tuesday night. Like I said, 15 games. I think I'm going to go through 7 or 8 of them in this video. Whatever I don't get to, we'll go through on the live show at 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's me, Toast, and Modi. So if you're able to make it, we'd love to see in the comments. MLB Tuesday, let's roll.
Welcome to the source. The source. Source. Hey, get the source.
First up, we got the Cards on the road in Pittsburgh. Pirates pretty heavily favored at home here, minus 164. Total sitting down at 7.5. Lance Lynn is on the mound for the Cards, and Skeens is pitching for the Pirates. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and according to the model, we got a heavy lean on Pittsburgh here, 3.8 to 2.14 after 5 innings. Final score 5.59 to 4.36. So before we get into this one, let's look at some ROI numbers. These two teams are pretty close. Cardinals are minus 3.7% on the year. Pirates are minus 1.4%. Recently, though, it's been all Pirates. In the last 10 games, the Pirates have a plus 67.4% ROI. So if you've been backing the Pirates recently, you've been making some money. So let's go ahead and get into this one. We'll start with the St. Louis Bats. They've been hitting, flying under the radar a little bit. In the last 30 days, Cardinals are 5th in WRC+, 7th in OPS, 6th in WOBA. As far as their numbers on the road, even better than that. In fact, in the last 30 days, this has been the best road lineup in baseball. First. So the Cardinals have been hitting, they've been hitting on the road, and they've been hitting right-handed pitching. In the last 30 days, the Cardinals are a top 5 lineup against righties, 5th, and 5th. So good start to this handicap for St. Louis. If you look at the numbers against righty starters, they've been getting to them. The last 10 righties to start a game against the Cardinals, they combined for a 5.94 ERA, 147 whip. Last 5 righty starters, the numbers look even slightly better than that. And when we pull up the game logs, it looks pretty good here. Now, this graphic is a little messed up because the Cardinals have played 2 doubleheaders recently, which always messes with my spreadsheets. You can see July 20th and July 10th, they played doubleheaders. But they have gotten to some righty starters on here. They got to Assad, got to Tyone a little bit, who's been very good. Got to Michael Wacha a little bit, who's been very good. Got to Schrellenbach a little bit. So when you look at these numbers, it doesn't look quite as good. But again, this spreadsheet is a little messed up because of the doubleheaders. As a whole, the Cardinals have been hitting righties. And check this out. We know Paul Skeens has been excellent, right? But the Cardinals have actually been much better against good righty starters. They're a top 10 lineup this year against righties with an ERA below 350. Skeens has a 190. So that's actually could be a good sign for the Cardinals, but Skeens is a strikeout guy. Skeens has a 34.9% strikeout rate, which is crazy. And the Cardinals, one of the worst lineups in baseball against righties with a strikeout rate above 24%. So I'd say that's not a great look for St. Louis. And also, we saw Skeens pitch against the Cards already. Back on June 11th, this was on the road in St. Louis. Pitched into the 7th inning, no earned runs, just 5 hits, no walks. Pitched an absolute gem. People were making fun of me for saying that phrase too much. Apparently, I say it all the time. But this was an absolute gem. And when we get into Skeens' numbers, I mean, we already know what this is. He's been good as hell. On the season, he's got a 190 ERA, 092 whip. Hasn't slowed down at all last 8 starts, last 4 starts. His numbers at home actually are slightly worse, but I mean, at home this season, he's got a 283 ERA, 120 whip. Last 6 home starts, last 3 home starts. I mean, these numbers look excellent for Paul Skeens. Here are his game logs. His last start, 7 no-hit innings on the road in Milwaukee. Pitched great against the Grimace Mets. I mean, there's no bad starts on here. You got to go back to June 5th against the Dodgers to find the last time a lineup even gave him some problems, and he wasn't even that bad. 5 innings, 7 base runners, and 3 earned runs back on June 5th. So really nobody has gotten to Paul Skeens. He's been as good as advertised. As far as righty-lefty splits, really nothing to take away here. The Cardinals do have 5 lefties in the lineup, but it's not that not like Skeens have struggled against lefties or anything. In fact, his splits are pretty even against righties and lefties, so really nothing to take away here. As far as his pitch mix, he does throw the four-seam fastball a lot, 37.9% of the time, and the Cardinals are a bottom 5 lineup against that pitch in the last 30 days. However, we do have to mention that his other two pitches are the sinker and the slider, and the Cardinals have been a top 10 lineup against those two pitches. So there is something there if you're looking to back the Cardinals. And you know what? We just saw the Cardinals have been getting to right-handed pitching. They've been hitting on the road. So, I mean, it's not crazy to say the Cardinals get to Paul Skeens, but based on how he's been pitching, based on his recent production, I don't know how you could put money against him pitching well. So as much as I trust the Cardinals lineup right now, I'm not sure if I'm willing to fade Skeens. On the other side, we got the Pirates bats, and look, the Pirates as a whole have been playing better, but the offensive numbers really don't show it. In the llast 30 days, 22nd in WRC+, 29th in OPS. Their numbers at home, 24th in WRC+, 19th in OPS in the last 30 days. So they're not really hitting at home, not really hitting right-handed pitching. Maybe slightly better in the last 30 days, 17th, 18th, and 18th. Not anything to write home about. Their numbers against righty starters, really not much better than that. The last 11 righty starters to pitch against the Pirates, 4.64 ERA and a 1.11 whip. Last 5 righty starters, 3.16 and a 1.15. So, yeah, the Pirates not really getting to righties, not really getting to righty starters. Here are the game logs, and they did get to Aaron Nola, which I should have bet the over in that game. I liked the over, didn't bet it, would have hit. So they did get to Aaron Nola. But, look at all the righty starters before that. They didn't get to Chris Flexen. Garrett Crochet's not supposed to be on here. He only pitched 2 innings in that game, and he's a lefty, so that's a mistake. But didn't get to Aaron Savali, Tobias Myers. So, I don't have a ton of faith in the Pirates bats at all. I know some people, Toast thinks the Pirates are a playoff team. I don't think they have the offense for it personally. We do have to mention that they did rock Lance Lynn earlier in the season, back on June 13th, just 4 1/3 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 7 base runners. So they had no problems getting to Lynn, a month and a half ago. When we look at Lance Lynn's numbers, he's definitely not pitching at the level he was earlier in the season. In his last 8 starts, 5.77 ERA, 1.46 whip. He was off to a really nice start, definitely starting to tail off a bit. His numbers on the road are abysmal. In his last 4 road starts, he's got an even 8 ERA and even 2 whip. His last 2 road starts, a 16.88 ERA. It is really that bad. But check out his game logs. This is tough to get a read on. 3 of his last 4 starts have actually been good, very good. But all 3 of them were at home. Home against the Cubs on July 13th, home against the Reds, home against the Braves on the 30th and the 24th. So 3 of his last 4 starts have been great, but they've all been at home. Look at his 2 road starts recently. On the road in Washington, the Nats crushed him. And then on the road in Miami, the Marlins crushed him. So 2 bottom 10 lineups in baseball, those are his last 2 road starts, and they both got to him. So even though I don't really trust the Pirates' bats, maybe Lance Lynn on the road is the exception. Maybe the Pirates could definitely get to him. Like I mentioned, back on June 13th, you could see the start against the Pirates we just talked about. So I don't see any reason to doubt the Pirates' bats here, even though I don't really trust them. Also, we know Lance Lynn really struggles against lefty bats, 3.54 WOBA, 1.57 whip. Pirates are loaded up with lefties. They're going to have 5 lefties in the lineup, including Reynolds and O'Neill Cruz in the 2 and the 3 spot. Roddy Tellez in the 5 spot. Definitely some dangerous lefties in the Pirates lineup. And the Pirates have nice looking hitting numbers against Lance Lynn's pitch mix. Throws the 4-seam fastball and the cutter. Pirates are 16th and 9th against those 2 pitches in the last 30 days. So, look, like I said, I don't really like making a habit of putting my money on the Pirates bats, but I don't see any reason to doubt them getting to Lance Lynn again, especially Lance Lynn on the road where he's been abysmal. So I think we can count on the Pirates to score some runs off Lynn. As far as the bullpen matchup, pretty even here. On the last 30 days, Pirates are a top 10 bullpen, believe it or not. 8th in ERA, 11th in WOBA. But so are the Cardinals. 4th in ERA, 10th in WOBA. Expected FIP doesn't look great. But as a whole, these 2 bullpens have been pretty even in the last month or so. Offensively, against bullpens, got to give the edge to Pittsburgh. In the last 30 days, the Pirates have been a top 5 lineup in the late innings. Not that the Cardinals have been bad. 10th in WRC+, 11th in OPS in the last 30 days. Still have to give the slight edge to the Pirates. So, believe it or not, the Pirates have the edge in the late innings in this one. Now, we should point out that the Pirates did use Bednar and Chapman in their win earlier tonight, but they only threw 13 and 11 pitches. Each has thrown 2 of the last 3 nights, but I would imagine both these guys are available if Pittsburgh needs them, so really nothing there. I'm still shocked that the Cardinals didn't get to Mitch Keller. I mean, they've been hitting right-handed pitching. They've been hitting on the road. Mitch Keller's look shaky. I really like that bet. Palante pitched great, and I'm frustrated about that Cardinals loss. So as far as betting this game, I mean, it has to be Cardinals at this price. Plus 155, are you crazy? I'm getting the better team at plus 155. Not to mention, we're after the All-Star break now. The Cardinals always seem to get hot in the second half of the season and somehow find the way into the wild card. At least that's how it's been in years past. I mean, I guess Cardinals at plus 155, but there's no way I'm taking Lance Lynn in a road start against Paul Skeens. There's no way I actually bet it. It'll be cards or pass. I will say if you're looking for a hitter prop in this one, maybe look at O'Neal Cruz. Now, I would imagine this is going to be one of the more square, more popular prop bets on the board. I personally don't track the prop market like that. But look at his expected WOBA and barrel rate numbers against righties with Lance Lynn's pitch mix. 18.07% barrel rate. It's really impressive. So, I mean, maybe look at O'Neal Cruz, maybe a home run bet or something. Next up, we got the Subway Series. Mets on the road in Yankee Stadium. Yanks are favored in this one, minus 162. Total sitting at 8.5. We got Jose Quintana pitching against Luis Gil. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we got a very slight lean on the Yankees through 5 innings, 2.87 to 2.65. Very slight lean on the Yankees' final score as well, 4.85 to 4.36. So before we get into this one, let's look at some ROI numbers, and it officially happened. The Mets are officially a more profitable team than the Yankees this year. The Mets are dead even. They're actually minus 0.04%, but the Yankees are minus 0.4%. So the Mets are slightly more profitable than the Yankees. That's a mini win for us Mets fans. In the last 10 games, though, the Mets are about even. Yankees minus 29.3%. As we know, the Yankees definitely have been going through a bit of a skid last month and a half. But let's get into this one, and we'll look at the Mets hitting numbers. They look fine. In the last 30 days, they're still a top 3 lineup, second across the board. Their numbers on the road are falling off, though. Earlier in the season, and you rewind 3-4 weeks ago, the Mets were the best road lineup in baseball, and it actually wasn't even really close. In the last 30 days, they're a borderline bottom 10 road lineup and definitely trending the wrong way. So all that offensive success the Mets were having on the road seems to be disappearing. Their numbers against right-handed pitching still look good, though. In the last 30 days, top 5 lineup against righties, 3rd, 4th, and 3rd. So still have solid-looking numbers against righties, still have solid-looking numbers against righty starters. Last 9 righty starters, though, 396 and 126 against the last 9. Not great. Last 4 numbers look pretty good. When you pull up the game logs, I mean, it looks solid. There are a couple question marks in here, like Rodri Munoz, 5 innings pitched, just 1 earned run, 6 base runners. But then they really got to Cabrera. They only scored 1 earned run, but they had 10 base runners in less than 5 innings. They were getting to Cabrera. They also crushed Jake Irvin. They got to Ryan Feltner. Before that, they couldn't get to Mitch Keller, couldn't get to Skeens, couldn't get to Jake Irvin. So really tough to get a read on this Mets lineup against righty starters, because they either look like one of the most dangerous lineups in baseball or they're just dead, which makes it tough to bet. Now, they did definitely get to Luis Gil earlier in the season. It was actually kind of recently, June 26th. Luis Gil was on the road in Citi Field. Mets scored 5 off him, 8 base runners in less than 5 innings of work. So they didn't have problems getting to Luis Gil earlier in the season. And Luis Gil, as we know, fell off a cliff. Look at his last 5 starts here, 7.25 ERA and a 1.48 whip. But did he turn the corner? Is he back? Because we're talking about back-to-back excellent looking starts for Gil. 1.42 ERA and an 0.79 whip in his last 2 starts. His numbers at home, 7.64 ERA, 1.42 whip in his last 4 home starts. So those don't look great. But if you pull up his game logs, look at those last 2 starts. July 13th on the road in Baltimore, pitched an absolute gem. I'll say it. 6 innings pitched, just 1 earned run, 6 base runners. That's a great start. And before that, home against the Red Sox, he almost threw 7 innings, 1 earned run, just 4 base runners, 4 hits. That's it. So back-to-back excellent starts against 2 dangerous lineups. So is Luis Gil back? It really looks like it. And the opponents he pitched against is huge, because Luis Gil's kryptonite in his numbers before these 2 starts were that he's been terrible against good lineups. His numbers against top 10 lineups were so bad. But now you look at his splits now after those 2 starts against Baltimore and Boston, it's starting to get better. He's thrown 52 and a third innings pitched against top 10 lineups, 4.13 ERA and 1.20 whip. And based on the recent slump, I guess, for the Mets lineup, I don't know if we can call them a top 10 lineup versus righties right now. Tough to make a call there. But to see Luis Gil back-to-back starts against good lineups is definitely huge. You're loving that if you're a Yankees fan. Also, Luis Gil has really nice numbers against righty bats. 250 WOBA and an 098 whip against righties, much better than his numbers against lefties. The reason that's significant is the Mets are a very righty-heavy lineup. They have Lindor and Nimmo, who are lefties at the top of the lineup, but after that, only one other lefty. So there's going to be 6 righties in the lineups for the Mets in this one, which is huge. So I like that for Luis Gil. Pitch mix-wise, I don't love this, though. The Mets have been one of the best lineups in baseball, hitting the fastball all year, and Luis Gil very reliant on the four-seam fastball, 51.9% of the time. So I don't like that at all. But as a whole, there are definitely a lot of angles I like here for Luis Gil. I don't think it's crazy to back him. I actually think he's going to pitch well. I'm down to back Luis Gil in this spot. On the other side, we got the Yankees bats. Last 30 days looking about average. 11th in WRC plus, 15th in OPS. If you look at their numbers at home, it's looking pretty bad. In the last 30 days, the Yankees are a bottom 5 home lineup in baseball. 22nd in WRC plus, 26th in OPS. So the Yankees, as we know, definitely not hitting right now like they were 6 weeks ago. Their numbers against left-handed pitching, average to slightly below average. 14th in WRC plus, 20th in OPS. Their numbers against lefty starters, check this out. The last 7 lefties to pitch against the Yankees, they combined for a 2.68 ERA and a 1.27 whip. So as a whole, the Yankees have not been getting to lefty starters. And when you look at the game logs, the dates are a little concerning here. They saw Cade Povich on June 12th, and they got to him. So that's a good sign. Other than that, they have not seen a ton of left-handed pitching. You got Andrew Abbott on July 3rd. They didn't get to him. Before that was Kikuchi, and they scored 4 earned runs, but only 5 base runners. They didn't really get to Kikuchi. And then before that, look at the dates here. We're back into late June. They weren't really getting to the names on this list. Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Max Fried, Chris Sale. This is a month ago. So the Yankees have not seen a lot of left-handed pitching at all. And the left-handed pitching they have seen in the last month and a half, they haven't done a great job against. And Jose Quintana's been pretty good. His last 8 starts, he's got a 2.89 ERA, 1.12 whip. Last 4 starts, numbers look about the same as that. He's been pretty good on the road. Specifically, we're talking about back-to-back excellent road starts for Quintana. In his last 2 starts on the road, he's allowed 0 earned runs, an 0.90 whip. So Quintana's been very good. He's been solid. He's been good on the road. If you look at his game logs, he did get hit up by the Rockies at home at Citi Field in his last start. But before that, back-to-back 7-inning shutouts against the Nats. He got hit up by the Astros, but then before that, back-to-back great starts on the road in Wrigley, home against the Padres, and then he got hit up in Philadelphia. But, who doesn't get hit up in Philadelphia? The problem with Quintana is he struggles against good lineups. That's kind of been the story developing here. On the season, he's thrown 32 2/3 innings pitched against top 10 lineups versus lefties. He's got terrible numbers in those innings, 7.44 ERA and a 1.59 whip. Meanwhile, he's been absolutely untouchable against bad lineups. 39 2/3 innings pitched, 1.59 ERA and an 0.86 whip. The question is, do we consider the Yankees a top 10 lineup versus lefties or a bottom 10 lineup versus lefties? I feel like you can make arguments for each. Certainly, recently, you'd have to say the Yankees are closer to a bottom 10 lineup versus lefties. I don't know if I'll put the stamp down on that, but based on recent production, I think they'd be closer to the bottom 10. As far as righty-lefty splits for Quintana, not much to take away here. His numbers are pretty similar against righty and lefty bats. And the Yanks are going to have 6 righties, 3 lefties in the lineup, so really nothing to take away there. Pitch mix-wise, he throws the sinker, the four-seam fastball, and the changeup. Those are his 3 main pitches. Yankees are 9th, 7th, and 25th against those 3 pitches in the last 30 days. As a whole on this side, I think Quintana should be okay. I don't expect him to get absolutely crushed, but I'm also not expecting him to go into Yankee Stadium and blank the Yankees. So through the first 5, I definitely like the edge for I almost said New York. I like the edge for the Yankees because I really could see Luis Gil pitching a great game. So I lean towards the Yankees in the first 5. Bullpen matchup definitely goes to the Yanks here. The Yankees bullpen might be back. In the last 30 days, they're slightly above average, 13th in ERA, 8th in WOBA. But in the last 14 days, they're up to the top 5. Remember, it wouldn't be crazy to say this Yankees bullpen is great because you rewind 2 months, they were great. They just fell off for a few weeks there. Looks like the Yankees bullpen is back, and the Mets bullpen has been, good Lord. Now that Diaz is back from the suspension and they added Maton from the Rays, I expect the Mets bullpen to be better. So if you look at the last 30 days, they're actually the worst bullpen in baseball. I expect them to be much better than that, but still, based on recent production, you'd have to give the bullpen edge to the Yankees here. Offensively against bullpens, though, pretty even. I mean, the last 30 days, both these teams are top 10 lineups in the late innings, so no edge there. Overall, in the late innings, I give the slight edge to the Yankees. As far as betting this game, I'm definitely on the Yankees in this one. Luis Gil looks all the way back. The Mets just had to fly up from Miami without a day off. They also had used some of their key bullpen arms. Diaz threw 28 pitches. He's thrown 2 of the last 3. Buto threw 29 pitches. He's thrown 2 of the last 3. So the Mets bullpen is a bit limited. Mets bats are trending in the wrong direction. I'm not going to let one game against Yanni Chirinos change my mind on that. So this is definitely a Yankee spot, in my opinion. I bet the money line, I laid the juice, and I laid the 1.5. I put a half unit on each. So I'm on the Yankees here. Next up, we got the Phils on the road in Minnesota. Twins are dogs at home here, plus 126. Total sitting at 7.5. We got Zach Wheeler on the mound for Philadelphia. Simeon Woods Richardson pitching for the Twins. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. According to the model, we got to lean on the Phillies here. 2.86 to 2.41 after 5 innings. 4.82 to 4.03 final score. So before we get into this one, let's look at some ROI numbers. Phillies have definitely been the more profitable team this year, plus 3.5%. Haven't been profitable recently, though. If you've been backing the Phillies in the last 10 games, you're minus 24.3% ROI. That being said, neither have the Twins. Twins are minus 4% on the season, minus 12% in their last 10 games. So neither of these teams have been profitable in the last 10. So let's get into this one. We'll start with the Phillies bats. Last 30 days, this is a top 10 lineup. These numbers look great. 4th in WRC+, 3rd in OPS, 3rd in WOBA. The numbers on the road, not quite as good. Phillies have definitely been more dangerous offensively at home. But they're not terrible. In the last 30 days, they're looking about average, 16th, 14th, and 15th. As far as their numbers against right-handed pitching, I mean, look solid. In the last 30 days, this is a top 10 lineup against righties. The numbers against righty starters look solid. Last 5 righties to pitch against the Phillies, 9.53 ERA, 194 whip. And when you pull up the game logs, I mean, it's really just that game against Joey Estes. They didn't get to him, but that was the last game before the All-Star break, so willing to cut the Phillies a little bit of slack for this one. Now, you might be looking at this graphic and saying, Kyle, what about Reynaldo Lopez and Spencer Schwellenbach? Phillies didn't get to them, but those are without Harper and Schwarber. Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber came back, I believe, on July 9th in that Bobby Miller game. So if you just exclude those two, Reynaldo Lopez, I mean, we're talking about 4 of the last 5 righty starters. Phillies definitely scored on, and the only one they didn't was Joey Estes, which is the last game before the All-Star break. So as a whole, as long as the Phillies are healthy, I trust that lineup against right-handed pitching, which brings us to Simeon Woods Richardson. He's been so consistent. I mean, not great, but not bad at all. He's actually been pretty good. In his last 9 starts, 4.21 ERA, 117 whip. Last 4 starts look about the same. His numbers at home look about the same. I mean, this dude, wait till you see his game logs. They're like all the same. He's so consistent. His last 5 home starts, 4.39 ERA, 112 whip. Last 3 home starts slightly better than that. Here are his game logs. And I mean, yes, he did struggle on the road in San Francisco. But before that, at home against the Astros, solid start. Home against the Tigers, solid start. On the road in Arizona, tough spot to pitch, solid start. Home against the Rays, solid start. Got hit up by Oakland. But before that, on the road in Pittsburgh, great start. So Simeon Woods Richardson, I mean, he's just quality start after quality start. We haven't seen many instances where he's got absolutely smoked. So Simeon Woods Richardson been pretty consistent, been pretty reliable. I will say he's pitched against a lot of bottom 10 lineups, and he's done a lot of his damage against them. Something we do have to point out. On the season against bottom 10 lineups, 32 2/3 innings pitched, 2.20 ERA, 104 whip. So he's been excellent against bottom 10 lineups. Not quite as good against top 10 lineups. He's only pitched 10 1/3 innings pitched as well. So you could say, hey, Simeon Woods Richardson has been solid, but he hasn't really pitched against a lot of great lineups, and that would be fair criticism. As far as righty-lefty splits for Woods Richardson, I mean, not much here. He's actually been slightly better against lefties, but I mean, pretty much dead even. Phillies have dangerous lefties and righties, though, so really nothing to take away here. And pitch mix-wise, really nothing to take away here as well. Throws the 4-seam fastball and the slider a lot. Those 2 pitches combined for 71% of his pitches, but Phillies, I mean, 12th and 16th against those 2 pitches in the last 30 days, so not much to take away there. Personally, like I said, I trust this Phillies lineup against righties, and even though Woods Richardson has been solid, I expect the Phillies to score off him. Like we pointed out, he hasn't pitched against a ton of great lineups. Phillies are definitely a great lineup. So I trust the Phillies to get to them. On the other side, we got the Twins bats, and good luck trying to figure this lineup out. So in the last 30 days, this is the best lineup in baseball. First in WRC+, first in OPS, first in WOBA. In the last 14 days, bottom 10 lineup in baseball. But, I mean, last 14 days includes the All-Star break, so it's a very small sample size. But, I mean, that's kind of the story when you're looking at the numbers for the Twins. I mean, look at the numbers at home. Last 30 days, one of the best lineups in baseball. Last 14 days, not. The numbers against right-handed pitching. Last 30 days, one of the best lineups in baseball. Last 14 days, about average. So, like I said, definitely tough to get a feel for this Twins lineup right now. As far as their numbers against righty starters, I mean, they were crushing righty starters about 3 weeks ago. But the last 5 righties to pitch against the Twins, 2.73 ERA, 103 WHIP. Here are the game logs. I mean, they just crushed Aaron Savale yesterday. I mean, actually 2 days ago by the time you're watching this. 5 earned runs, 8 base runners in less than 5 innings of work. But look at before that. Peralta, Birdsong. This Fetty's obviously on there twice because of the stupid doubleheader. But if you look before that, they weren't really getting to the last few righty starters they saw. So if you're willing to overlook like a 1 week stretch, you could say the Twins have been absolutely dominant against righty starters. But there's definitely a stretch in there where they weren't touching them. And we need to figure it out because they've got Zach Wheeler coming in. As I'm sure you probably already know, Zach Wheeler, one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. Last 7 starts, 3.35 ERA, 107 WHIP. Last 3 starts look great. Now, his numbers on the road look shaky, but when you pull up his game logs, it's really just one, and I'll show you in a second. But his last 2 road starts, 8.71 ERA, 174 WHIP. As a whole this season, he's been slightly worse on the road, but if you pull up his game logs, it's 1 start. I mean, June 16th on the road in Baltimore, the O's crushed him. 8 earned runs, 11 base runners, and 4 1/3 innings pitched. Really skewing his road numbers. Because if you look other than that, I mean, on the road in Wrigley, July 3rd, he pitched great. On the road in Boston, June 11th, he pitched great. So it's one really bad road start that's making it look that you can't trust Zach Wheeler on the road. That's not an accurate representation. Now, here is something that concerns me for Wheeler, though. He's definitely been significantly worse against lefty bats. 315 WOBA, 128 WHIP on the year. Look how good he is against righties. 195 and an 070. So he's been almost untouchable against righty bats, but against lefties, not so much. Twins are projected to have 7 lefties in the lineup. 7. That's Cleveland Guardians territory. So I hate that for Zach Wheeler. That makes me lean towards the Twins bats here, getting to them. As far as the pitch mix, goes the 4-seam fastball, the sinker, the slider, the cutter. I mean, he throws a lot of pitches. Twins 17th, 14th, 1st, 23rd. I mean, I don't know. Not much to take away from these pitch mix numbers here. But as a whole, I like all those lefties in the Twins lineup. I think they can get to Wheeler. I do. So I'm down to back the Twins bats here. Bullpen matchup definitely goes to the Twins. On the last 30 days, Minnesota 5th in ERA, 1st in WOBA, Twins bullpen. Meanwhile, we were talking about this on the live show a couple days ago. What happened to the Phillies bullpen? I mean, in the last 30 days, the Phillies were one of the best bullpen in baseball if you rewind 3-4 weeks. Last 30 days, 26th in ERA, 24th in WOBA. And offensively against bullpens, Phillies have fallen off as well. In the last 30 days, the Phillies are a bottom 10 lineup in the late innings. Meanwhile, Twins, one of the best in baseball. So late innings, based on recent production, the edge definitely goes to the Twins. As far as betting this game, I was looking at that Twins money line at plus 140. I was staring it down. I couldn't pull the trigger on it. But I do think the Twins are able to score some runs on Zach Wheeler with all those lefties. I'm not saying they're going to crush them, but I do think they'll get 2 or 3 across. That Phillies bullpen has been a disaster recently, so I expect the Twins to score some runs in this game. But I think the Phillies, after last night's loss, a cold night offensively, I think they bounce back. We just pointed out how Woods Richardson has pitched against a lot of bad lineups. I think the Phillies bats are going to spark them. So instead of looking at the Twins, I also like the Twins team total over 3.5. You can get it at plus money. I personally just took the over. I bet it. I got it at 8 at minus 105. So I'm on the over on this one. Next up, Milwaukee's on the road in Wrigley. Cubs are short home favorites here, minus 120. Total sitting at 8.5. We got Colin Ray on the mound for the Brew Crew. Jameson Tyon's pitching for the Cubs. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, this one's almost deadlocked. Slight lean on the Cubs here, 2.43 to 2.26 after 5 innings. Final score 4.3 to 4.03. So before we get into this one, let's look at the ROI numbers here. Brewers have definitely been the more profitable team, plus 7.1% on the season. Cubs are minus 4.5%. But if we're talking as as of late, in the last 10 games, Cubs have a plus 33.5% ROI, and the Brewers have a minus 13%. So the Cubs have been the more profitable team to bet lately. So let's go ahead and get into the numbers on this one. We'll start with the Brewers bats. Things are looking solid here. Milwaukee's got top 10 numbers on the season, 9th, 9th, and 8th. Top 10 numbers in the last 30 days, 7th, 9th, and 7th. As far as their numbers on the road, looking solid here as well. 10th, 10th, and 9th on the year. They've climbed into the top 10 as far as road hitting numbers. That was not the case earlier in the season. First couple months of the season, the Brewers were hitting at home, not so much on the road. It's kind of flipped. In the last 30 days, the Brewers are actually a top 5 road lineup. So the Brewers have been hitting. They've been hitting on the road. Haven't really been hitting right-handed pitching, though. In the last 30 days, 18th, 20th, and 19th. You can see on the season, this is a top 10 lineup against righties. Definitely trending in the wrong direction the last month or so. As far as their numbers against right-handed starters, I mean, last 5 righties to pitch against the Brewers, 3.90 ERA, 107 WHIP. So not really getting to righty starters. When you pull up the game logs, though, it's really not that bad. You got that 7 no-hit inning performance from Paul Skeens, kind of skewing the numbers here. Joe Ryan, they scored 4 runs off of, but only 7 hits, just 7 base runners in 6 innings, so that's not great. They didn't get to Pablo Lopez, but they absolutely crushed Jake Irvin, who's having a great year. Didn't really get to Quinn Priester, but they got to Tyler Glass now. So kind of mixed signals here for the Brewers bats against righty starters, which brings us to Jameson Taillon. He's very familiar with this team. He's made 7 starts against the Brewers since 2022. In those starts, he's got a 3.41 ERA, 1.14 WHIP. And Taillon's having himself a solid season here. 3.10 ERA, 1.16 WHIP on the season. Last 4 starts, last 2 starts look great. His numbers at home in Wrigley also look great. At home this year, 2.91 ERA, 1.17 WHIP. Last 4 home starts, last 2 home starts, things are looking great here. Here's game logs, and I mean, let's tip our hats to Jameson Taillon. He really is having a great season. You can see June 16th, home against the Cardinals, little shaky, 9 base runners, but I mean, as a whole, these are solid-looking game logs. And what's even more impressive for Jameson Taillon is he's actually been much better against good teams. Check this out. Against top 10 lineups versus righties this year, he's thrown 51 innings, 2.29 ERA, and an 0.88 WHIP. This dude's actually been really good against good teams. He's struggled against bad teams. Now, the Brewers on the season are a top 10 lineup against righties. They're a top 5 lineup on the road in the last 30 days. It's up to you where you would put them, but I think that's a good thing. Now, the pitch picks numbers do concern me a little. Taillon does throw the 4-seam fastball as his main pitch 32.5% of the time. Brewers are the 3rd best lineup in baseball against the 4-seam fastball in the last 30 days. But Taillon's other pitches, the cutter, the slider, and the sinker, Brewers are bottom 10 against all 3. So I'd say nothing really to take away from that. As a whole on this side, I mean, I don't see any reason to doubt Jameson Taillon. He's been so solid, so consistent. Don't love the idea that the Brewers just saw him on June 28th. That game was on the road in Milwaukee. He's been good at home at Wrigley Field. Look, I don't expect them to throw 6 shutout innings here, but I think we can get a quality start out of, let's say, 5 2/3, 2 earned runs from Taillon. Now let's flip it over to the other side and look at the Cubs bats. Last 30 days, 18th, 18th, and 18th, so slightly below average. Their numbers at home, though, good Lord, man. They've been terrible offensively in Wrigley. In the last 30 days, the Cubs are a bottom 3 lineup at home. It's really not hitting at Wrigley Field. They do have some decent-looking numbers against right-handed pitching. I mean, they're not setting the world on fire, but in the last 30 days, 15th, 15th, and 15th. So they have been active against righties. Same goes for their numbers against righty starters. The last 12 righty starters to pitch against the Cubs, 4.90 ERA, 1.46 WHIP. So they have been active against righty starters. But when you pull up the game logs, 2 in a row, 7 shutout from Brandon Pfaadt, 5 shutout from Zach Gallen, although they did have 9 base runners against Gallen in that July 20th start. Before that, Ryan Nelson pitched into the 6th inning, just 1 earned run. So this Cubs team was getting to righty starters before the All-Star break. Might be dead. 3 in a row. I don't know if I trust this Cubs lineup against righties right now. And it certainly doesn't help the cause that Colin Rea has had no problems pitching against the Cubs in the past. Since last season, he's made 3 starts against the Cubs. He's got a 1.72 ERA and an 0.83 WHIP. So Colin Rea has pitched very well against this lineup. Now, Colin Rea is kind of trending in the wrong direction, though. Rewind a month and a half ago, he was pitching really well. Last 5 starts, he's got a 5.08 ERA. 1.16 WHIP is solid, though, but definitely letting some runs across. As far as his numbers on the road, I mean, 4.10 ERA is not terrible. 1.44 WHIP in his last 5 road starts, but 5.40 expected FIP. Certainly a bit concerning. When you look at the game logs, though, it looks like there's just 2 bad starts kind of weighing the numbers down here. July 9th against the Pirates, terrible. 5 earned runs, 8 base runners, and just 5 innings of work. And also back on June 21st, he got crushed on the road in San Diego. Other than that, though, and I mean, if you're concerned about his numbers on the road, July 3rd, he went into Coors Field and threw 7 shutout innings, just 6 base runners. So I don't know. I'm not too concerned with that. Also, another thing about Colin Rea this year, he's mostly gotten hit up by good lineups. On the season, he's thrown 26 and a third innings pitched against top 10 lineups versus righties. He's got a 6.49 ERA and a 1.52 WHIP in those innings. When he's pitched against bottom 10 lineups, he's been much better. 3.90 ERA and a 1.10 WHIP. I don't know if I consider the Cubs a bottom 10 lineup, but we're talking about 3 consecutive righty starters that have given that the Cubs failed to get to. So maybe they're trending back down towards being a bottom 10 lineup versus righties, honestly. Colin Rea also struggles a little bit against lefty bats. 325 WOBA and a 129 WHIP. Definitely worse than his numbers against righties, but I don't think that's much of a concern here. Cubs only projected to have 4 lefties in the lineup, so really nothing there. Pitch mix wise, again, really nothing to take away here. His main pitches are the sinker and the cutter. Cubs are 19th and 5th against those 2 pitches in the last 30 days. As a whole on this side, I mean, we're kind of in a similar situation here. On paper, Colin Reyes should deal. Just like on paper, I think Jameson Taillon should pitch well, but I don't like how the Cubs just saw him. They just saw him on June 28th. They didn't get to him, but I really don't like that. So I'm kind of expecting a similar performance from Colin Rea. 5 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs. I think both starting pitchers should be good, but not great. As far as the bullpen matchup, no question, edge goes to the Cubs here. Last 30 days, the Cubs bullpen is first in Major League Baseball in ERA, second in WOBA. Cubs bullpen has really come around. Not that the Brewers bullpen has been terrible. They're 12th and 14th, but no question, based on recent production, you got to give the bullpen edge to the Cubs. Offensively against bullpens, though, you got to give the edge to Milwaukee. So late innings, pretty even, slight edge to the Cubs. As far as betting this game, I mean, I got nothing. Flip a coin, honestly. This feels like such a coin flip game. I guess the situation that the Cubs bullpen is in would probably push me towards Milwaukee at plus 100. They did use Neris. They used Tyson Miller for 23 pitches. Neris is now thrown back-to-back nights. Only 12 pitches apiece, though. So if they need him, he'd probably be available. That guy Hodge has pitched 2 back-to-back nights as well. Mark Leiter Jr. has pitched back-to-back nights. The thing is, they have like 12 pitches, 15 pitches, 10 pitches. So I don't even know if these guys are unavailable. But overall, the Cubs bullpen is definitely on the tax side, which would push me over towards Milwaukee at the plus 100. But I'm not trying to fade Taillon, and I don't know. I guess it'll be Brewers or pass for me here. I was trying to find something for this game, so I went over to Outlier, and actually right on the homepage, there's a nice looking trend here. The under has hit in 7 of the last 7 Chicago Cubs home games. So 7 straight unders at Wrigley. And this one happened to pop up right in the feed. But if you never used Outlier before, you would go up to games, click on Brewers Cubs, apply, and it would show you all the trends for that's under insights, showed you all the trends for that game. So I like this one here. 7 straight unders in Cubs games at Wrigley. So under sitting at 8.5, you have to pay minus 118, minus 120 juice for it. So let's say under. I'll put it down as a maybe. Also, while I was on here, I was just clicking around, seeing if I could find anything. I clicked on the Yankees-Mets game, and check this out. The over is hitting 18 of the last 27 Yankees home games. So overs in Yankee Stadium, 18-9 in the last 27. So maybe worth a look. I do like the Yankees to score runs off Quintana, so maybe worth a look at the over in that game. If you've never used Outlier before, there's a link in the description of this video. Next up, we got the White Sox on the road in Arlington, Texas. Short home favorites here, minus 120. Total sitting at 7.5. We got Garrett Crochet on the mound for Chicago. John Gray's pitching for the Rangers. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we got to lean on the White Sox here. 2.49 to 1.92 after 5 innings. Final score is pretty much even, though. 3.81 to 3.76. So a slight lean to the White Sox, but not much at all. So before we get into this one, let's look at the ROI numbers. Obviously, Texas has been the more profitable team because the White Sox have been the least profitable team in baseball this year, minus 36.8% ROI this season. Not that the Rangers have been a great team to bet, though, minus 10.4%. But if you have been betting the Rangers recently, you've been making a few dollars here and there, plus 12.2% in the last 10 games. So let's get into this one. We'll start with the White Sox bats, and it's a crime scene. On the season, this is the worst lineup in baseball. 30th in WRC+, 30th in OPS, 30th in WOPA. Same goes to the last 30 days. As far as their numbers on the road, pretty much the same thing. 29th across the board on the season. Bottom 5 road lineup in baseball in the last 30 days. So they're not hitting. They're not hitting on the road, and they're certainly not hitting right-handed pitching. on the season. This is the worst lineup in baseball against righties. Same goes for the last 30 days, last 14 days. I mean, the White Sox are rock bottom when it comes to offenses in Major League Baseball. They're not getting to righty starters, as you may have guessed. The last 6 righty starters to pitch against the White Sox combined for a 1.95 ERA and an 0.86 whip. The last 3 righty starters, even worse than that. And check out the game logs. I mean, look at those 3. Seth Lugo, Brady Singer, Michael Wacha. Those 3 guys against the White Sox combined for 23 innings pitched, just 1 run, 1 earned run. I mean, shit, 12 hits, 3 walks, 15 base runners in 23 innings pitched. The White Sox didn't touch those guys. But Jon Gray is certainly not Seth Lugo. We know that. Jon Gray actually hasn't pitched against the White Sox since 2022. He did pitch well, though. He went 6 innings, just 3 hits, 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts. The White Sox current bats against Jon Gray lifetime, just 8 for 48, hitting just 167, 445 OPS. So, well, as far as career numbers go, looks great here for Jon Gray. But we do have to mention that Jon Gray's been struggling. In his last 4 starts, 6.30 ERA, 1.35 whip. Last 2 starts, the whip slightly worse than that at 1.67. His last 2 home starts are okay, 2.70 with a 1.10 whip. 5.43 expected FIP certainly isn't good, though. Here are his game logs, and it's really shaky. I mean, I guess a decent start on the road in LA. He gave up 3 runs to the Angels, but just 6 base runners and 5 innings of work. It's not great. The Angels have a terrible lineup. Before that, the Padres hit him up. Before that, Baltimore hit him up. We'll give him a pass for that. He did have 1 gem back on June 22nd. 6 shutout innings against the Royals, just 2 base runners. I mean, other than that, there's just not a lot of great performances on here for Jon Gray. That being said, there are a couple nice angles here. First, let's look at the righty-lefty splits. He's got really solid-looking numbers against righty bats. 249 WOBA and a 101 whip. That's great. It's lefty bats that have given Jon Gray problems this year. 367 WOBA, 169 whip against lefties. But the White Sox don't have any lefties. The White Sox are projected to have 7 righties in the lineup here. So that's a great sign for Jon Gray. If you're a Rangers fan or plan on backing the Rangers here, you love to see that. And also his pitch mix. His 2 main pitches are the 4-seam fastball and the slider. He also throws the changeup a little bit. White Sox are terrible. In fact, on the season, this is the worst lineup in baseball against those 3 pitches. So there are a couple of really nice angles here for Jon Gray, even though he's been as unreliable as it gets. Against the White Sox, I think he'll pitch well. Really, at home against the White Sox, I think if there's ever a spot for Jon Gray to pitch well, it's here. Now let's flip it around to the other side and look at the Rangers hitting numbers. On the season, bottom 10 lineup. Last 30 days, slightly better than that. 19th, 17th, and 17th, not great. As far as their numbers at home, kind of the same story here. Bottom 10 on the season, slightly better than that in the last 30 days. 20th, 18th, 17th. As far as their numbers against left-handed pitching, this is weird. All right, so if you look at the last 30 days, this is a top 5 lineup against lefties. Last 14 days, one of the worst lineups in baseball. And if you look at their numbers against lefty starters, okay, the last 3, 6.28 ERA. So maybe they've gotten to some lefty starters. But look at the game logs. Look at the last time the Texas Rangers saw a lefty starter. June 30th. The Rangers have not seen a lefty starter in over 3 weeks now. So how can we make any sort of judgment of what this lineup's going to do against a lefty starter? I mean, if we rewind back to June when they were seeing lefty starters, they weren't really getting to them. I mean, they did get to Cole Irvin. Other than that, I mean, didn't get to Cade Povich, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, James Paxton, Tariq Skubal. Didn't really get to these guys. But again, we're talking, this is a month ago. So how relevant is this data? We're talking about a month ago. So really tough to make a prediction here. Now, we can point at Garrett Crochet's home-away splits because they are significant. He's been good as hell this year. Not trying to take anything away from him. He's been untouchable. But he's got a 4.17 ERA on the road and a 1.05 whip. Much worse than his numbers at home. Now, if you look at his stat, I mean, on the season, he's got a 3.02 ERA, 0.95 whip. His last 4 starts, 1.93 ERA, 0.96 whip. I mean, he's been untouchable. And same goes for his numbers on the road, which is important to take note that his struggles on the road came earlier in the season. His last 4 road starts, 1.57 ERA and an 0.91 whip. So we can just toss those Garrett Crochet home-away splits because he's been dominant 4 straight road starts. What I am concerned about, how long is he going to pitch into this game? Because his last 2, I mean, his start against Pittsburgh, he didn't allow a single base runner, 2 innings pitched. They took him out and put in Jonathan Cannon. So I think we all expect that he's going to be traded within the next week. So I don't know how long they're going to keep Garrett Crochet in this game. And that one was at home against the Pirates. His last road start was in Miami. He wasn't even good. 8 base runners, 2 earned runs in just 4 innings. So I don't know how much I trust Garrett Crochet here. Not so much his pitching, more so how long is he going to stay in the game. And also the Rangers have solid hitting numbers against his pitch mix. Goes the 4-seam fastball and the cutter. Rangers are 10th and 14th against those 2 pitches. I know Garrett Crochet has some dominant numbers. I know he's been a bet-on pitcher for most of the season, but I'm not scared to fade Crochet here. I don't even know how long he's going to stay in the game. So I'm down to back Texas, to count on Texas to score some runs here. As far as the bullpen matchup, got to give the edge to the Rangers. Not that the Rangers bullpen has even been good. In the last 30 days, they are 10th in ERA, 9th in WOBA, 26th in the expected FIP isn't great. But we're talking about the White Sox here. They've had one of the worst, if not the worst, bullpen in baseball for most of the season. Bottom 10 in the last 30 days, last 14 days. So bullpen edge goes to the Rangers. Offensively, against bullpens, I mean, both these units are as bad as it gets. In the last 30 days, the Rangers slightly better, but in the last 14 days, they're both terrible. So a wash there. Late innings, slight edge to the Rangers. As far as betting this game, I do like the Rangers. I already bet it, but we do have to pull up the Rangers bullpen here. Kirby Yates has thrown back-to-back nights, including 21 pitches earlier tonight. He might not be available, probably not. David Robertson has thrown back-to-back nights, but he only threw 12, so maybe he's available. Leclerc threw 22 pitches. So the Rangers bullpen definitely on the tax side. But the thing is, the White Sox bullpen is kind of banged up as well. Well, not banged up. They're not hurt. Well, actually, they are hurt also. That's not really what I was talking about. Brebbia just threw 28 pitches. He's thrown back-to-back nights. He won't be available. The Rangers just saw Kopech for 17 pitches. So it's not like the White Sox bullpen is in great shape either. I'm a little worried about the late innings in this one, but pretty confident in my bet. Like I said, I got the Rangers money line at -120. Also, if you're looking for a hitter prop in this one, I mean, why not ride the hot hand here? That kid Wyatt Langford hits a walk-off home run earlier tonight. I mean, look at his expected WOBA and barrel rate numbers against lefties with Garrett Crochet's pitch mix. 485 and a 13.35. This kid just continues to produce. So if you're looking for a batter prop in this one, I'd look at Wyatt Langford. Next up, we got the Angels on the road in Seattle. Mariners are -185 favorites here. Total sitting at 7.5. We got Jose Soriano pitching for the Angels. Logan Gilbert's on the mound for Seattle. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we got a slight lean on the Mariners after 5 innings, 2.32 to 2.5. Lean on the Mariners' final score as well. 4.76 to 3.89. So before we get into this one, let's look at some ROI numbers. These two teams pretty close. Angels are -5.5% on the season. Mariners -3.5%. The Angels have been turning a profit as of late, though. Last 10 games plus 10.5%. The thing is, this game is in Seattle, and we do have to point out that the Mariners have been very profitable at home, although they're slipping. On the season, they're still plus 9.3% on the year at home, but -4.5% in the last 10 games. So backing the Mariners at home has not been a profitable decision recently. And let's go ahead and get into this one. We'll start with the Angels bats. Bottom 5 lineup in the last 30 days, 26th, 26th, and 25th. As far as their numbers on the road, I mean, this is the worst lineup in baseball in the last 30 days on the road, 30th, 30th, and 30th. As far as their numbers against right-handed pitching, I mean, bottom 5, bottom 6 lineup against righties on the season. Last 30 days, borderline bottom 10 lineup. Look at their numbers against righty starters. I mean, the last 4 righty starters that pitch against the Angels, 188 ERA and a 104 whip. So they're not getting to righty starters. But when you look at the game logs, it's a little bit excusable here. They did get to Joey Estes, and they actually got to Mitch Spence a little bit too. Before that, they got blanked a couple times, but it was Logan Gilbert, who we're talking about right here, and George Kirby. So I don't know if we can necessarily crucify this lineup for not getting to Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. Nobody's getting to those two guys. They did get to Brian Wu. So maybe the Angels' terrible numbers against right-handed pitching recently a little bit skewed based on the fact that they saw 2 savage righties. But they're seeing another one. It's Logan Gilbert again. In his last 6 starts, he's been great. 193 ERA, 064 whip. Last 2 starts, same elite numbers here. He's definitely been much better on the road this year. You can see in his last 5 home starts, 366 ERA, 094 whip. Not bad at all. In fact, those numbers are still good, just not nearly as good as his numbers on the road. Here are his game logs, and you'd see that 1 home start against Baltimore. That's pretty rocky looking. Also, the White Sox were able to get some runs across on him back on June 10th. But as a whole, Logan Gilbert's been good as hell. Not much to take away here. Logan Gilbert's been one of the better starting pitchers in baseball. He's also been absolutely dominant against bad lineups. Check this out. On the season, he's thrown 43 innings against bottom 10 lineups versus righties. in those innings, 0.84 ERA and an 0.58 whip. So Logan Gilbert against bad lineups has been automatic. I mean, he's been untouchable, and we know this Angels lineup is most definitely a bottom 10 lineup. Righty-lefty splits, not much to take away here. The Angels are more of a righty-heavy lineup, but Logan Gilbert has pretty much identical splits. I mean, he's actually slightly better against lefties. Not much to take away here from righty-lefty splits. Pitch mix-wise, he throws the fastball and the slider. Those are his two main pitches. Angels are 29th and 19th against those two pitches. So I guess that's a solid look for Logan Gilbert. As far as his personal history against the Angels, since 2021, he's made 9 starts against them. He's 4-2 with a 3.93 ERA, 1.13 whip. So there have been instances in the past where the Angels were able to get to Logan Gilbert, 3.93 ERA. Although we do have to mention he's definitely having the best season of his career right now. The current Angels lineup lifetime against Logan Gilbert, 765 OPS. So you can see there have been instances where they got to him. He hasn't completely blanked him, but he's having the best season of his career. Look, as a whole on this side, I'm not jumping at the opportunity to fade Logan Gilbert. He's been so good, but he's definitely been better on the road. Yeah, if you're going to fade Logan Gilbert, probably should do it at home in Seattle. And also, the Angels did just see him. So maybe we can count on the Angels to get 2 or 3 runs across here. On the other side, we got the Seattle bats, and as you probably already know, it's pretty bad. Last 30 days, 24th, 28th, and 27th. Their numbers at home even worse. It's actually one of the worst home lineups in baseball. In the last 30 days, 29th, 30th, and 30th. And that's the same for the whole season. 25th, 29th, and 29th on the season at home. This has been a terrible home lineup all year. Same goes for the numbers against right-handed pitching. In the last 30 days, this is a borderline bottom 5 lineup against righties, 25th, 28th, and 27th. They're not getting to righty starters at all. Look at this sample size, 15. The last 15 righty starters to pitch against the Mariners, 2.40 ERA and a 1.04 whip. Holy shit, man. This team just cannot score runs. If we pull up the game logs, I mean, they did get to Ronel Blanco, so let's give him a little bit of credit. Before that, they didn't touch Hunter Brown. Didn't really get to Jose Soriano, which is who we're talking about here. They did have 9 base runners in that game, though. Before that, Michael King didn't get to him. They got to Adam Mason. So it's actually not nearly as bad as you would think looking at the numbers. There were a couple instances here where they were able to make some noise. But as a whole, we know the Seattle lineup cannot be relied on. Which brings us to Jose Soriano. Now, he's having a solid season. 3.41 ERA, 1.17 whip in his last 5 starts. Definitely been a little bit better at home, but these numbers are kind of skewed as well. 5.09 ERA and a 1.17 whip in his last 4 starts on the road. If you pull up the game logs, though, it's really not that bad. It's just those 2 starts right when he came back from injury, July 2nd and July 7th, they were a little rough. In fact, you can make the argument that he really hasn't been right since coming back from injury, because even the Seattle start, he gave up 9 base runners like we just talked about. So Jose Soriano as a whole this year has been so good, but he's yet to really earn my trust since returning from injury. He missed 3 weeks back in late June. It hasn't 100% looked right since coming back. Now, you can point to the fact that he's been much better against bad lineups, and we know Seattle is most definitely a bottom 10 lineup. 2.97 ERA and a 1.29 whip against bottom 10 lineups, so that's a good sign. And he also has absolutely dominant numbers against lefty bats. 2.44 WOBA and an 0.96 whip against lefties. Seattle's going to have 5 lefties in the lineup, including 3 of their first 4 hitters. Some really important pieces in that Seattle lineup are lefties, so you love that for Jose Soriano, and it actually gets even better. His main pitch by far is the sinker. He throws it 42.6% of the time. Seattle's the worst lineup in baseball against the sinker in the last 30 days. Dead last. So there's a couple really nice angles here for Soriano. Now, I don't love the idea that Seattle's already seen Soriano twice this year, once on May 31st, once on July 13th. And I also don't like that he was much better in the home start on July 13th. May 31st in Seattle, they actually got to him. So I definitely don't like that at all. And I don't like that out of both these starts, neither were great. I mean, 9 base runners in both of them. So Seattle, as bad as their lineup is, they haven't really had problems getting to Soriano this year in both the starts. 9 base runners in both of them. So consider the fact that they just saw Soriano twice in a row. I don't know. I really don't trust him here. Don't have a lot of faith in Soriano in this one, even against a shitty Mariners lineup. As far as the bullpen matchup, got to give the edge to Seattle. The Angels bullpen did get hot there for a little bit, but it seems to be over. On the last 30 days, the Mariners are a top 10 bullpen. Angels are actually as well in the last 30 days, but we know that they're not. Seattle's got the better bullpen. It's not really close. Offensively against bullpens, surprisingly goes to Seattle. In the late innings, the Mariners haven't been as bad. In the last 30 days, they're a pretty average lineup in the late innings. Angels are closer to bottom 10. So advantage in the late innings definitely goes to the Mariners here. Now we have to take a look at bullpen usage here because we might have some situations on both sides. First of all, the Angels just used Estevez again tonight. That's back-to-back nights for him. They used Louis Garcia. That's back-to-back nights for him. They also used Krause. That's back-to-back nights for him. Now he only threw 10 and 5 pitches, but I don't think they're trying to overuse him. He's now pitched 3 of the last 4 nights. So Angels bullpen definitely on the tax side. And check out Seattle. Munoz, back-to-back nights. Stanek, 2 of the last 3 nights. He just threw 15 pitches earlier tonight. Thornton, 23 pitches earlier tonight, and 2 in the last 3. Now, I'm not saying these 2 bullpens are absolutely rocked, but it adds to my bet. I'm on the over, by the way. I'm going to take this at 7. I haven't bet this one yet, but I think I'm going to bet this right after I'm done recording. It's sitting at 7 based on the fact that it's Logan Gilbert against Soriano, but we just pointed out the fact that Logan Gilbert more vulnerable at home in Seattle, and the Angels just saw him, 9 days ago, right before the All-Star break. The Angels just saw him, and this Seattle lineup, as bad as it's been, they've actually got guys on base. Both times they've saw Soriano. This is the 3rd time they're going to see Soriano this year. So I think we can count on a couple runs on both sides. Total all the way down at 7. A couple attacks, bullpens. Let's do it. Over. Next up, we got Giants on the road in Dodger Stadium. Dodgers slight home favorites here, minus 135. Total sitting at 8.5. We got Jordan Hicks on the mound for the Giants. Landon Knack is pitching for the Dodgers. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we got to lean on LA here. 3.57 to 2.56 after 5 innings. 5.6 to 4.59 final score. So before we get into this one, let's look at some ROI numbers. And these 2 teams are actually dead even. Both the Giants and the Dodgers are exactly minus 6.6% on the year. Last 10 games, pretty close as well. Minus 29.2% for San Francisco. Minus 25% for the Dodgers. So both these teams dead even in ROI. Pretty close in the last 10 games as well. So let's go ahead and get into the numbers here. Giants definitely seem to be entering a bit of a hitting slump on the last 30 days. This is a bottom 10 lineup, 21st in WRC+, 24th in OPS, 23rd in WOBA. The numbers on the road even worse. If you watch the live show, you know Toast always says he never trusts the Giants on the road. Well, the offensive numbers definitely reflect that. In the last 30 days, this is a bottom 3 lineup on the road. So Giants haven't been hitting on the road. Righty starters, there was a stretch where they were getting to right-handed pitching. But in the last 30 days, this is a bottom 10 lineup against righties, 22nd, 22nd, 24th. And I mentioned righty starters. Here are the numbers here. The last 5 righty starters to pitch against the Giants, 4.23 ERA, 1.34 WHIP. So not really getting to righty starters. When you pull up the game logs, the names are a little concerning here. I mean, you got Ryan Feltner, Cal Quantrill, Chris Paddock, Woods Richardson, Joe Ryan. I mean, when you get down to the bottom, Joe Ryan, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett. But, I mean, those 4 at the top, those are names that the Giants should be scoring more runs on. They didn't really get... I mean, Ryan Feltner pitched 7 innings, just 2 earned runs. Cal Quantrill, who had been struggling, he pitched a solid game. Chris Paddock, 5 innings, 1 earned run. So that little streak of the Giants getting to righty starters, that definitely seems to be over, which brings us to Landon Knack. Now, we're dealing with a very small sample size. I think he's only made 7 or 8 career starts. He does have decent numbers on the year. 3.23 ERA, 105 WHIP. Last 2 starts up at 7.27. Now, when we look at his home numbers, again, looks solid. 3.32 ERA and an 0.95 WHIP at home. Super small sample size, though. When we pull up the game logs, I'm a little concerned here. Look at the innings pitched. 4 1/3, 4 1/3, 4 2/3, 5 innings pitched. I mean, he's not going deep into games at all. And look at the Giants game specifically on June 28th. I mean, this Giants lineup already saw him. And if you just look at that game log, 4 2/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 earned run. It looks like a solid start, right? Well, when he left the game in the 5th inning, there were 2 men on base. So, I mean, whoever came in after him got out of the inning. But that 1 earned run could have easily been 3 with a base hit. So a lot of these starts, 4 2/3, 4 1/3, 4 1/3. Keep in mind, when he left, there were probably people on base, and who knows? So I'm really worried about the lack of depth in these starts. Not that Landon Knack's been bad, but by no means do I trust this guy. As far as righty-lefty splits, he does have better numbers against lefty bats. 287 WOBA. It's up at 324 for righty bats. Thing is, the Giants have a pretty mixed lineup. They're going to have 5 lefties in it, so really nothing to take away there. Pitch mix wise, he throws the fastball, the slider, and the changeup. Giants are 13th, 8th, and 29th in the last 30 days against those 3 pitches. So really nothing to take away there as well. I don't really trust, as a whole on this side, I don't really trust the Giants lineup right now, especially against righty starters, but I don't trust Landon Knack to take it past 5 innings because we haven't seen him do it in 5 or 6 starts. So I don't know. Tough to make a prediction on that side. I think we can count on the Giants to get 2 or 3 runs in the first 5 innings here. On the other side, we got the Dodgers bats looking solid. Last 30 days, this is a top 10 lineup. They're actually the number 1 lineup in baseball over the course of the season. Numbers at home look just as solid. Last 30 days, this is a top 5 home lineup, top 5 home lineup on the season. So they're hitting at home, they're hitting versus righties as well. Last 30 days, top 5 lineup against right-handed pitching, top 5 lineup against righties on the season also. Now, when we look at their numbers specifically against righty starters, though, things get a little shaky. The last 11 righty starters to pitch against the Dodgers, 3.76 ERA, 1.14 whip. The last 6 righty starters to pitch against the Dodgers, even worse than that. So they're not really getting to righty starters. When you pull up the game logs, there's a really scary stretch in here. So they got to Carter Crawford on the 21st. 6 earned runs, 7 hits, so that's a solid one. Before that, didn't really get to Bayo. Didn't get to Pivetta at all. Pivetta, 6 shutout innings. Didn't get to Kenta Maeda, but he didn't start that game. Bo Briss started. Kenta Maeda came in relief. So that one probably shouldn't count. Before that, didn't get to Nola. Didn't get to Zach Wheeler. I don't know. I don't know what I think about this Dodgers lineup against righty starters. I mean, the numbers indicate that they're hitting right-handed pitching fine. I mean, top 5 in Major League Baseball in the last 30 days. But I'm looking at these game logs, not seeing a ton of hope that I can completely count on the Dodgers lineup to get to a righty starter right now. But then I look at Jordan Hicks and my faith is restored. First of all, the current Dodgers lineup against Hicks, they've had 35 career at-bats. They're hitting 314 off him with an 886 OPS. So this Dodgers lineup hasn't had problems hitting off Hicks in the past. But we do have to mention that Jordan Hicks already pitched against the Dodgers back on May 13th. 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 2 earned runs. I mean, decent start there. I will say that was back early in the season when Jordan Hicks was pitching well, though. That is not the case recently. I've talked about this a couple times. Jordan Hicks, man, last 8 starts, 6.08 ERA, 178 whip. Last 4 starts, even worse than that. The wheels have just fallen off the wagon for Jordan Hicks. Look at his numbers on the road. I mean, last 2 road starts, an even 8 ERA, 2.11 whip. Here are his game logs, and there's just... There's not many good starts on here. I mean, even the Cubs start on June 17th, you look at that like, okay, 5 shutout innings. He still allowed 8 base runners in that start. So even the good start in these game logs wasn't very good. This is not a guy I trust at all. Jordan Hicks is trending in the wrong direction. Now, if you are looking to back Jordan Hicks, you can point at the fact that he's actually been much better against good lineups. On the season, he's thrown 36 innings pitched against top 10 lineups, which we know the Dodgers definitely are. He's got a 3.25 ERA and a 1.14 whip in those innings. So he's actually pitched better. He gets up for the big games. So there's something. But as a whole, there's a lot of scary numbers here for Jordan Hicks. You can also point at the righty-lefty splits, though. Look at his numbers against righties. 3.08 WOBA, 110 whip. He really struggles against lefties. Dodgers are only going to have 4 lefties in the lineup. So there's something. But who are the lefties? Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman. I mean, good Lord. So I guess that's a positive for Jordan Hicks that there's only 4 lefties in the lineup, but 2 of them are the 2 of the best hitters in baseball. Pitch mix-wise, though, it is kind of favorable for Jordan Hicks. The Dodgers have struggled with the sinker recently, 24th in the last 30 days, and Jordan Hicks throws the sinker a lot, over 50% of the time. So there's something. As a whole, though, I think Jordan Hicks is kind of a blind fade for me right now. So even though the Dodgers do look a little shaky against righty starters, I completely expect them to score runs on Jordan Hicks. As far as the bullpen matchup, I mean, I guess we'll give the edge to the Giants, but both of these units have just been... I mean, the last 30 days, the Dodgers bullpen is 19th in ERA, 28th in WOBA, 28th in expected FIP. The Giants are 20th, 27th, and 6th. What I mean, flip a coin, man. These bullpens are both really not performing right now. Offensively against bullpens, though, edge definitely goes to the Dodgers. The last 30 days, they're pretty average. Giants are below average, and they're trending the wrong direction. So I guess late innings, slight edge to the Dodgers, but not by much, man. Now, as far as betting this game, if you watched yesterday's live show, I already told everyone I was taking the over in this one. I already like the over. I already bet it. But now we have some bullpen usage on top of that, which actually even helps my over. Hudson has now thrown 3 of the last 4. Vija, well, he only threw 10. He'll be available. Look at that guy training. I always say his name wrong. 20 pitches. He's thrown 2 of the last 3. Look, again, not that the Dodgers bullpen is rocked. There's just a couple of missing arms. That's all. The same goes for the Giants. Ryan Walker, 3 of the last 4. Eric Miller, 2 of the last 3. Look, I'm not saying the bullpen usage is a reason for my over here. I mentioned on the live show that I like the over. So I was betting the over regardless, but bullpen usage doesn't hurt. So give me the over. I already bet it. Like I said earlier, live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go through all 15 games, make our final decisions. It'll be me, Toast, and Bodai. If you're able to make it, would love to see you in the comments. If you want my top bets or top bets from anyone on the staff here, head over to KyleKirms.com and sign up for Sauce Network Plus. Comes with everyone's top bets, access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $100 and a trophy go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested in any of that, head over to the website and sign up. Let's have ourselves a nice Tuesday. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.